Hey guys, welcome back to UModeler. In our last video, we took a look at how we can edit your Synty characters in different game objects. But in this video, what we're going to do is actually rig our Synty character. So what I'm going to do is select my character here. And the first thing I want to do is right click, and I'm going to create an empty game object. So this game object is going to act as my root bone for my character here. So I'm going to click enter there, name it. All right, and then what we're gonna do is select our character. Now on the right side of our screen, we have a few different options at our disposal. We have modeling. This icon on the right side is paint mode, but in the center, we have the rigging mode. So what I'm gonna do is select that. All right, and a few things we need to do is, first thing we're gonna do is click and drag the root bone into these sections here. And what I can do actually is go ahead and hit start rigging. So what I'll do is click start rigging. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this root bone into here. Let's just make sure that this is taking it. All right. Sometimes you might have to actually click and drag the parent into here so that we can get that. So we should be good to go there. All right. So below we have this bone tree. And we have this root bone, and that's going to be the object we're going to be basing this on. And so below that, we have a few different tools. We have the weight section, and then we have the bone group. All right. So the first thing we want to do is basically get the bones into place. So what I'll do is go ahead and click on this icon here where it says build bones. And then in here, you'll have some tool properties. What I'm going to do is make sure that the structure is human, okay? And then the rest of these, I'll just go ahead and leave as default, and you wanna make sure this is symmetry as well. All right, so what I do is click build, and here you're gonna get a few different dots here, and these dots are gonna be basically our bones. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and move these into place. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, and I wanna move the neck bone closer into the neck. So I'm gonna move that upwards, just like so. And then I'm gonna go to the side, and then I'm gonna take the head and kind of reposition it. And I'm gonna take the neck and move it a little higher as well and bring the head in just like so. All right. And then in terms of the arms and the hands, I think they're in a pretty good position. So you can leave them that way, or you can of course maneuver them as needed. So you can kind of take this and say, well, I want this here, and maybe you want this here. And that looks pretty good. And the bone doesn't have any fingers, but we can add bones later. So we'll leave this as it is. All right. And I think the knees area, the left knee or the left leg, right foot, that sort of thing, I think we're all good to go there. So I'm going to leave everything as it is. Once you've gotten those in position, all you have to do is click make bone. And there you have it. So now we have some bones here. So you can select a bone by holding down the shift key and selecting different bones here. So for instance, if I select this bone and I go into rotate, you can actually rotate this bone just like so. All right, perfect. All right, that looks pretty good. And if you want, you can continue to select a bone and you can move it just like normal, just like that. But we're gonna leave this just like so to keep it super simple. All right, so now that we have our bones, what I'm gonna do is select my root bone. So that's gonna be that bottom bone here. What you can also do is go into the bone tree and select. So it's just whatever's easier for you, but you can select it this way as well. And there's the root bone selected. So now our goal is to basically weight the bone onto the mesh so that they're merged together. So basically what we're going to do is go over to the weight group, and we're going to go over where it says auto weight. After you click on auto weight, at the bottom you're going to see some tool properties. And in here we can change a few different things if we want. So what I'm going to do is just leave everything as default so that we can just see what result we have. So what we're going to do is click auto weight with that root bone selected. And when we do that, our mesh is going to change the color to blue, but really it's not blue. It's really based on the bone that you have selected. So now if I select the arm and I hold down shift and I select that root bone, Now, if I rotate, now you can see that they are binded together and it's looking okay. Not perfect, but okay. Basically, we are getting somewhere. All right. And so this is where now we can take this and we can kind of check, okay, what bones are working good, what bones are not. We can check the neck. If you want, you can hold the F key, click the F key, and you can rotate different things to see how things are working. I think the head is pretty decent, not too bad. That's the neck. We probably wouldn't need to rotate this part at all. You can, but it just depends on what you're going for. But what we want to do is check a few different things. Now, UModeler X has a bunch of different features. We're not going to go into every single feature, but this is really just to get you up started pretty quickly with rigging and painting your weights for your model. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to select this right leg here. And when I select that leg, you can see the mesh itself has a different color. And basically that just means that there's a certain weight distribution in terms of the mesh to the bone. So for instance, if I rotate this leg out, you can see that this bone is influencing certain parts of the mesh, okay? So if I would pull this guy all the way out, you can see, okay, there's something going on here. We need this part of the foot, this part of the leg to be bind to this particular bone. Now, it's not necessarily this bone that's causing the problem. What it's saying is, in the hierarchy of the bone, when you move this bone, it's moving these. So technically, if I select this bone, we actually need to maybe adjust something here or adjust the foot. So let's start with the foot for an example. Now, inside of your inspector, and if you go down to where it says weight brush, this is where we're going to actually paint different weights onto this mesh. So we have a few different options. We can mix, we can add, subtract, blur, darken, lighten. But I typically use subtract and add. So what we're going to do is add. So here we want this foot to influence most of this mesh at the bottom. And so what we want to do is click, and as you can see, we're really painting this. Now we have the weight all the way up to 1. We can kind of reduce it to where it doesn't go too hard, but right now I think 1 is pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and click. And it's going to be really, in this case, because it's such a low poly mesh, you want to look at these points. So that's where the influence is. So what we're going to do is click on that. So I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to click. And as you can see, it's starting to go back to what we need it to be. And you can tell because you see how it's dark red, that's going to be the most influence. And as it gets into more blue, almost black, that's going to be the least influence. So as you can see now, that foot is influencing, or that bone is influencing all of this particular mesh foot. Now, just to show you, if I go to subtract and I select this toe to subtract, as you can see, I've removed influence. And so you can do that as well, but we don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and add that influence back and we're good to go. And so now if I go to the middle bone here and we kind of get an understanding of what's going on, we kind of want this middle bone to have some influence to this area. And we just want to make sure that that's being taken care of. So we can go in and add even more influence as needed. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint there. We can even have that bone influence some of the foot as well if we want to. It's just up to you. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm just kind of giving you an understanding of how the tools work here. And so that looks pretty good. And now if I go up to the next bone up, we can say, okay, we need this bone to influence more of this thigh area. So I'll go ahead and click in these areas as well. And I'll even click some of this knee area. And we'll just go around and we'll keep doing this here. and I'll just keep clicking until I'm satisfied with what I have. And that's looking pretty good, not too bad. Looking pretty good. All right, so that looks pretty good. And so now when we move that leg, and if we were to kind of rotate it, we're getting, it's not too bad at all. And so what we can do now is also say, okay, well, I don't want this waistline to go in so much. So this is where we can use the subtract. And so we can say, well, let's get rid of that. We don't want that to, we don't need that bone to influence his waist. So we'll just go ahead and click there. And we can say, well, we don't want that to influence too much. Let's do that. That looks pretty good. And we don't want the influence here. Maybe a little bit here, because if they're going to move the leg, we might want the jacket to kind of move with it. So that's something you want to kind of think about. But what we don't want is this leg to influence this pair of pants on the right side, on this side here. So what we're going to do now, what you can do now to get this leg back in the proper position, what we can do is mirror the weight. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to click the weight mirror tool. And as you can see, this kind of in the center of your game object here, what I'm going to do is all I have to click is mirror, and you basically want the arrow here to go from, we want to mirror what's over here to what's over here, just kind of using this arrow as your guide. So I'll leave all of this like this, but if you need to flip it, you can flip it as well. But we're going to leave everything default in this case. So I'm going to hit mirror. And as you can see, it took whatever we painted here and mirrored that data over to the other side so that we don't have to do double work. So now if I select this leg and I do if I go back to the paint, the weight brush tool, and I select that leg, and now if I were to rotate out, now we're looking much better with our character, and he is looking much better there. Now what we can do is also play with the arms and kind of get an understanding of how the arms would do it. And it's pretty much the same thing. I don't necessarily want the arm to bend this way. So what I'm going to do is remove the influence on this shoulder area, and also, yeah, just remove most of the influence there. So I'll just go ahead and do a subtract, and then I'll just start painting all of the areas that I don't want it to be influenced by. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So if we rotate it, we can see, okay, there's some stuff being influenced there, as you can see in this arm. So remove that influence. You can kind of do that. Oh, okay, I can see that there's an influence there. We don't want that there. We don't want an influence there. So it's pretty easy to work with, and it's intuitive as well. So we can kind of go in and do this. All right, great. And so now we have our arm, and we're not really influencing anything on this mesh, and that looks pretty good. And we can kind of do the same thing with the hand. So in the meantime, what we want is to move everything back into place. So what I'm going to do is go in my tools section, and what I'm going to do is reset the pose. So all you got to do is click this button, and it's going to get our guy right back to the position that we need him in. And then we can continue moving and editing things. So when I move this hand, I don't necessarily want it to move this forearm. So of course, I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool, subtract, and I'm going to remove that influence in this area as well. And so it just takes a little time, but it's all worth it in the end. Kind of going in, cleaning that up. All right, looks pretty good. And so now if we rotate it again, it's not perfect. The bone needs to be in a different position. I would say more in the wrist area. So, but this gives you a good understanding as to how this all would work. All right, and so now that we've painted that, what we want to do is, of course, mirror that over because we don't want that there. So again, going back to your mirror tool, paint mirror, we want this side to go to this side. And so we're going to paint, boom, there we go. And so now if I go back into my weight brush tool and I rotate, we're going to get that there, and that's going to look pretty good. And so now at this point, what we can do is just simply select different bones and basically stress test this here so we can kind of get an idea of what's moving and what's affecting what, and go from there. So if I select this, is that doing what I want? That's pretty good. I don't mind that going down and collapsing. So that's pretty great. I like it. All right. Now, if you need to add any additional bones or fingers or any particular extra bone to the object, this may not be a human. It could be a human that has a tail or ears or hair, that sort of thing. You might want to add some additional bones. So to do that, what you want to do is select where you want that bone to be added. So in this case, let's just say we want to add a finger bone or two. So I'm going to select this bone here. And what I'm actually going to do is go into Edit Bones. And in this case, it's going to give you a few tool properties here. You can add, parent, remove, that sort of thing. And I'll let you guys play with that. But for the most part, you're going to be using add and delete. So I'm going to click add. And then once you click add, you want to drag this out. And what you've done is created a new bone here. And so now what you can do is continue to add additional bones and go from there and continue to build on this. Now, I'm not going to actually build this, but the same process is going to be if you need to paint, your weights. So if we actually want to paint fingers to make sure that the hand is bending and connected to the proper bone, then you would want to go through the same process we had before. Now, if you need to delete a bone, you can go ahead and select the bone you want and hit delete. And we can do that, of course, by holding shift, selecting that bone, hitting delete. If you want to make sure the bone is named properly, before you create the bone, you want to rename the bone. So in this case, I can say bone and just say finger, and then click add, and then that bone is going to be named bone finger. Exactly. Just like that. And of course, like I said, if you want the tail, you can select this bone here. We can go add, take this out, bring it out, do another add, keep going. And as you can see, it is doing it there. And also, of course, you can say tail, bone, tail, and then it'll be like bone tail 1, bone tail 2, that sort of thing. So it's not duplicating. So those are just different ways you can approach it. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and delete this for now because I do not need this tail there. And I'll go ahead and delete the finger because it's not needed for me right now. All right. And so other than that, we've edited the bones, we've added some bones, we painted some weights, and we have our character kind of looking pretty good. It's not too bad. And this is pretty basic. This is just your very basic, get your character up and running, get it rigged all directly inside of Unity. So the next step at this point is actually to export your character as an FBX so that you can actually use your character as a rigged character in your game. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and select my character here. And what I'm going to do is select this. So we're going to get out of the rigging mode. And you can do that, as you can see here in our toolbar, you have this little wrench. If you go here, you can get out of rigging mode. And you can actually click here too, and you can be completely out of rigging mode. But if you want to stay in this mode just like this, that's completely fine. So what I'm going to do is now select this character here. And what I'm going to do is go into my game object, and I'm going to export to FBX. Now, if you don't have this option in yours, all you have to do is download it from Unity. It's a free asset. It's just simple export to FBX. It's a Unity asset. All right. And so at this point, we're basically going to export this. So in my case, I'm just going to actually rename this guy _rigged, just like so. and we're all set there. And I'm going to hit export, and we're all set there. So what I'm going to do is hide this character or turn it off, one or the other. We can do just hide it. So now that I've exported that as an FBX, I'm going to go down into my assets folder, and as you see, I have that character right here. And as you can see, it's basically the underscore rigged version, and everything looks normal. At the top here, we have the different FBX options. We have model, rig, animation, materials. I'm going to click on rig. Now, the main thing you want to do is make sure it's not generic. We're going to switch it to humanoid, and then I'm going to click apply. Once I hit apply, we're going to hit configure. And in here, we're going to see the bone structure that we developed using UModeler X here ready to go. Now, to test that this is all working properly, I'm just going to click on muscles and settings, and we're going to see our character here, and we can kind of play with to see if the bones and the structures are working as expected. And we can kind of see everything is moving just like you would expect. And this is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And now you have a rig character, easy, ready to go. And you can do this to all your characters, edit your characters, and use them in your game just like you normally would. Cool. Well, I hope that didn't take too long. I wanted to keep it brief. I wanted to keep it as straight to the point as possible. I'm hoping that you find that useful. I have this video on rigging. I have another video on rigging as well in regards to UModeler X. So feel free to check out both of those videos and ask any questions in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help. Feel free to reach out to me in the Discord channel. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to stay up to date with the latest features and updates by hitting the subscribe button and clicking the notification bell. More features are coming, and you wouldn't want to miss out. See you soon.